9:02, let's call the meeting to order. We'll lead with the invocation.
Josh is going to give it.
Oh, Letty's going to do that, okay.
Go with my prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to say thank you for another day that you've given us. Thank you, Father, for your only begotten Son. And Father, we ask that you would give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding for this meeting this morning, for all those that are involved, Father. We thank you, Lord, for your love, your mercy, and your grace. It's in Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas pledge, please. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone but Ronnie. And now we're going to go ahead and have a roll call. Elias?
Jerry Garcia, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Luis Elizondo, Vice Chairman.
Present.
Leo Gonzalez, Secretary.
Here.
Devin Bogdan. Armando Chapa.
Here.
Caitlin Shoup.
Present.
Gabrielle Hill-Pold.
Present.
Butch Poole.
Present.
Kevin Kieschnick, ex officio.
Here.
Ronnie Canales, Chief Appraiser.
Here.
Lady Roberts, Assistant Chief.
Here.
Melissa Vela, Attorney.
Here.
Terry Noack, TLO.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much, Elias. The meeting is called to order after this quorum has been called. Do we have any public comment?
No one signed up.
Showing no public comment, first item on the discussion will be item number 6, and it's the approval of the May 10th regular meeting of the minutes, approval of the May 2023 disbursements, and receipt of the June 2023 litigation report. Unless someone specifically wants to target a letter A, B, or C, I'll accept the nomination, or I'll accept a motion for approval, please. Mr. Elizondo makes a motion to approve. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Leo seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Let the record show it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And now, Terry, would you please give us a TLO, TLO officer's report. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
ARB is way busy. Over 30,000 protests have been filed, and that was as of end of last week, so more are on the way. So they've been working very hard. Mr. Tiller is doing an awesome job. And they're starting 5 panels tomorrow because they use your room down here for that 5th panel. So they're rocking and rolling.
Terry, is there do you have a percentage of?
Thank you, Ronnie.
In lieu of me reading these microscopic numbers, do we have a percentage of how many more people we've had this year than last?
So I get to read the microscopic.
Here, if you read
Okay.
for a second.
We had 23,000 last year and 33,000 this year. And let the record show that this is without any sort of cheaters looking at these numbers. And
Good job, Jerry.
43%.
so everything is rocking, and there's you're not lacking for anything right now, Jerry?
No. Well, we're lacking for more boardrooms, but, you know,
But as far as
that comes with rebuild.
Okay. All right, well then, anything else?
Mr. Cantu, Israel, he was appointed to the board. He was an auxiliary last year and moved to the board this year, but he's caring for his mom who has some health issues. So he requested to go back to auxiliary, and so the logical move was to switch him and Brian McCabe. So the judge signed off on that, I think, June 6th. So Brian's back on the full board and Izzy is back to being an auxiliary, but it worked and there was no
Yes,
no
ma'am.
craziness involved. So
Yes, Okay.
that's it.
Well,
We're
I'm
just,
sorry to hear that, but I'm glad it could be taken care of quickly.
yes, yes.
Is there anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Nowak?
Thank you for your
No.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Terry.
you.
Next item on the agenda is the presentation of the 2024 proposed budget, and I will call on my good friend Elias.
Okay, Ronnie wants to give a couple of forwarding remarks, and we'll get into that.
Okay, Ronnie?
Did I throw you under the bus without
No,
realizing?
no, no,
Okay.
no. Several things have happened over the last year, so, and it all has to do with litigation. Most of our budget increase is coming through the litigation fund. As of today, I think we're less than 500,000 in our litigation fund. In our budget, we're going to be requesting $1 million. That's going to be one of the highlights there. We have 4% cost of living raise in there. We have 400,000 for renovation of the remainder of the third floor. And then we were going to be looking at 7 new vehicles at an average of, I think it was about 26,000 a piece, which is averaging about 200 plus. We were going to take that 200, which is what we did, and put it into the building to renovate, so it'll give us a total of about 600,000. We've gotten some bids that are a little bit more or pretty much close to what the numbers are that we're looking at. And the reason that we're going to be looking at finishing the third floor is, and I think Terry just alluded to a little bit of it, is space. In order for us to continue to grow with staff and do what we do here, we need additional space. And that space is up in the third floor. In the design that we're looking at, or the plans that we're looking at, it's to open up more offices up on the third floor, plus another panel upstairs on the third floor as well. So that's part of what the budget looks like. I know that the increase, it's excessive, but if you take the $1 million off, I think we come down to
Like 2.5.
2.5 or 3%. But I think, though, that this is a one-time thing that we're doing with the building, again, to determine what to finish the remodeling of it. That's $600,000 right there. So the litigation will be here forever, as far as we know. It's just a matter of how we're going to fund it in the future. Normally, we would have been asking for $500,000, but because we run pretty much close to zero on the balance of that litigation fund, we need to make sure we have ample funds to continue to do what we have to do litigation-wise with basically the refineries. That's where it's costing us a lot of money. And anyway, that's basically it. Elias, you want to finish off?
Sure, sure. Okay, so I'm going to...
Hold on, Elias, if I
Yes.
could interrupt
Yes,
you.
of course.
L.A.?
Can I ask a question? Ronnie, when you said the litigation and you said refiners, because we all know that's the big, big battle. But with this new budget that you're proposing, are you spreading some of that litigation expense to the entities that are not really gonna, I guess, recoup any benefit from the refineries?
Yes. That's the way it's always worked. They approve the budget based on the numbers that's put on the budget, and it goes through all of the entities, not just one or two. Whether they're involved in the lawsuits or not, it doesn't make a difference as far as the budget is concerned.
Ronnie, can I ask something? You've done a commendable job in bringing the employees' salaries up to par with most of the other entities out there. The 4% cost of living, is that the same as last year's?
Yes.
And how does it compare to the raises the entities are paying their employees, the entities that we represent are paying their employees? Do you know?
Well, it's not close, it's pretty close to what we do. Now, the reason we've been doing this for a couple of years now is because we're trying to catch up with what had not been done before I got here. When I got here back in 2011, starting salary for an appraiser, with or without experience, with or without a proper education, meaning higher education or high school or GED, they were starting off at 29,000, I believe it was. clerks were making about $10.50 an hour or $9.50 an hour. Today, that same appraiser starting off at
46.
46, and then the clerk is at 16 to start dollars, per hour. And in order for us to compete with what's out there, we got to make sure that we have a competitive schedule for salaries.
Yeah, but does it compare to what the other entities are doing also?
Right now, the city does things differently. It's changed its way of doing things. They have a tier process where they've got 100,000, 200, and 300,000. They do a job performance raise. It's anywhere between 3 and 5%. Some people might get a 1% increase. That's not including your fire and police. They're set by contract because they're unionized. That's that. And then the school district, they're basically different too. They give a base of 1% of a raise. That's what they do pretty much on a yearly basis. And then in between the year, they give an additional supplement raise. But at the end of the year, they remove that raise and go back to its base salary, since most of these people are contractual teachers, and that's what they
They
do.
give 1% and then they take it away from them?
No, the 1% is base. That stays with them, okay? The additional monies that they give them, that goes with them for the whole year, and then supposedly, at the end of the year, they start back on their base on January 1st.
Do you have money set aside for merit increases?
Yes, we do.
How much is that?
30,000.
That's it, yeah.
It's it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ronnie before we go to Elias?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you right now, based on the budget shortfalls that the county's going to have, is that we'll be laying employees off and there will be no raises this year.
None? For the
None.
county?
Zero. In fact, I anticipate having to close all of my satellite offices as a result of the loss of revenue that's coming from the Valero and Flint Hills issues. And we will probably be cutting stuff across the board countywide. And I would suspect the same would be for CCISD, Del Mar, and Tolosa Midway. I would be shocked if those schools would even possibly have, there may be an issue with these taxing jurisdictions being able to pay the appraisal district. It's that bad.
Well, yeah, because this budget's going to go to the entities
Yes, it is. Yes.
right after we approve it.
As far as Del Mar, I'm sorry, Linda.
Kevin, so sorry.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Kevin, are you saying basically that because of what we have been starting to do and because of the situation of the lawsuit as it stands, that all these entities are frozen in terms of their budget right now?
Well, they're more than frozen. The numbers we're looking at as a loss of revenue to the county might be approaching $30 million.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
you and all the other entities are not getting any raises for anything, right?
We're gonna be laying.
Then we have to seriously look at our budget because that's a red flag right there for everyone, you know?
Yeah, I don't see how we can even really do any raises or anything above what is absolutely necessary, because the money's not gonna be there with these big losses right now until, it's all gonna be dependent on what, we have to anticipate based off of what these two refineries are gonna do, and we can only base it off of past history. And past history, they've been paying on a very small amount, basically roughly half of what their valuations is. Now we're essentially quadrupled, and there's just no telling what, until we know what they're going to pay on, and we won't know that until January. We have to assume the worst, and those numbers are very, very bleak. We are looking to work on some legislative issues that may help us resolve some of these, but it's a huge financial crisis fixing to happen outside of that.
I just want to remind everybody, we do have the Flint Hills update and Valero update in executive session.
Right, but this is mundane to the budget.
Sure.
And so I'm just going to kind of cut it there, but it's the reality of what's fixing to happen is pretty
So
bleak.
in your opinion, with the county and the city and your experiences that you're going through, anywhere that those those governmental agencies can cut or fire they're doing.
They're gonna have to.
So, and this is predicated on the refineries.
Yes.
Okay. And so we have, there's no prevailing issue other than the taxpayers are paying. Am I not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the onus of this is on the heavy hitters, which in this case would be the refineries.
That's correct.
Okay. We're just sort of trying to put things
Yeah,
in
yeah, and
perspective.
this is, you know, we're kind of walking on unprecedented grounds here.
Right.
And, you know, it-
I think it would help, Kevin, if you explained why, because, you know, at CCISD, we traditionally are short about 5 million because the gap between what we say they're worth, or we're worth, and what,
the numbers I've run on CCISD is probably about a $60 million shortfall.
so about a 60, from 5 million to about 60 million
Yeah.
shortfall.
And that's, I'm taking 10% off for the anticipated decrease in rates because all we can do is extrapolate this year's rates, and we know those rates are going to be lower.
And the reason why there's a shortfall is because the state takes our values and says, okay, this is what you're going to receive, so we're going to cut back on what we're going to pay out to you.
Well, no, this actually is just loss of revenue from property tax.
But
And
there's,
But then the state won't make that up until that lawsuit is settled.
is why there's the shortfall.
Right. You know,
And so if we're 100% successful, then we get all the money, but, you know, there's all kinds of contingencies that can happen, and
it depends on when that suit gets settled, is when the state will or won't make, you know, if we prevail, then there's no money for the state to make up, and then they'll have to pay us. If we do not prevail, the state won't supplement the school districts until after that suit has been settled.
And
that could
have
be
you
years down.
calculated?
You know, we're 5 years already on 2018, it still hasn't been settled. I think CCISD still owed about $25 million.
25 million.
Yeah.
What's the city shortfall looking like? Do you
Well,
know?
the city's got the industrial district agreement, so they're not going to be hit quite as heavy. And I haven't really done any calculations on that because I'm not real super clear on how that gets funded and how that's going to play into this situation. But the big ones are going to be the county, Del Mar, CCISD, Tolosa Midway, and lesser extent ESD number 2, I think it is, or number 1. And in West Oso to some degree, and we're still trying to figure that out based on, Letty sent us some numbers yesterday, so we're trying to figure out where they stand.
Okay. All right, Elias?
Okey-doke. So with that said, here is the version of the budget. It's this document that's in front of you. And because it's got a lot of pages with a lot of other stuff in it, I'm going to drill into what I want you to zone in on. What's driving this is the expenses. So if you will go to page 12 in that document. There's 1 year of actual 2022 because now that's audited and known and all that. And then 2023, 2024 laid out next to each other, and then another column on the far right that shows by line item the increase in the expenses. By line item. So I'm going to hit the high ones. So that first section is the personnel expenses. You can see that entire section is increasing by about $320,000. It's a combination of a lot of things. There was some position realignments to take out some positions but put in one. The cost of living increase. There's been personnel changes. We've got basically merits and cost of living. That's kind of triggering increases in the other line items. The health insurance is just another area. We put it into a fund. We pay claims as they come out, as the claims come up. The fund keeps kind of going down, so I have to increase, plus there's inflation. So inflation is kind of the theme throughout the entire budget. It's just hitting in different line items. But then there's other stuff that's beyond inflation that we're choosing to do or to propose. So that's the salary section. We took 4 positions out. We put 1 in. We have the cost of living. We have other corresponding effects on the other line items. That second section, supplies and operating expenses, not a whole lot of going on there, but office supplies, that's mostly inflationary plus higher use. Postage and freight, higher use plus postage rates keep going up. They've been increasing them twice a year. Some other smaller changes. The insurance is going to go up by about 8%, or at least that's the best estimate I've been able to get. And we're going to have banking fees because I'm keeping more over at Tex Pool instead of over in the bank where it covers the earnings. I call it funny money, is covering the fees. I'm keeping more at Tex Pool to earn more interest revenue, so I'm incurring bank fees at the bank. Small amount, but the trade-off is worth it. Let's see, vehicle, just holding it the same. It seems to be sufficient. Then that bottom section, professional services, and it runs into the next page, there's lots of little things going on in there. IT service maintenance contracts, those are all of our existing maintenance contracts, but every year they go up. So that's mostly inflationary. The GIS service contract, the change finder actually came in less than what we thought it was going to come in at. So there's actually a decrease by $40,000 in that line item. On the next page, the mineral industrial, that's T.Y. Pickett. Y'all approved a $50,000 increase last year. So now that's being budgeted for in 2024. That's the third year of that contract.
And I'm sorry, what does Pickett do for us?
Minerals and industrial appraisals.
But they're not, are they doing the refineries as well?
They were.
Yes, yes, they are,
Yes, sir.
as well as Steve Graybill.
So,
Well, they already done the past previous years, but for 23, that's where Graybill comes in.
okay.
So are we paying them for the past or for next year?
T.Y. Pickett, we're paying them for the past and for next year as well.
But didn't we have gray bill for next year?
Yes, yes, we do.
So do we need both?
Well, they do, see, Graybill is strictly doing the refineries, whereas T.Y. Pickett is doing the wind farms, pipe, gas, what do you call them, pipelines, et cetera. And they're doing other things that they
But
normally do.
are we paying him the same amounts for lesser work?
Yes, we are. See, remember, we contracted in Graybill after we had already approved the 50,000 for T.Y. Pickett for the work that they've been doing from the past.
Can we
Go ahead.
ask them, obviously, if they're not having to do the refineries, can we ask them, contractually, I guess we're obligated, because we did it before we had Graybill.
Right.
But I think the argument that was made when we did their contract is these guys are a long-term contract with us. They work with us. I think it'd be reasonable to go back and say, can we talk about a discount since you're actually not going to be doing this work?
No, we'll talk to them
Okay.
and see what they say.
I think that'd be a very viable option, quite frankly, because
Yeah.
I think if
I
I'm a
agree.
good partner and one of my customers comes to me and says, hey, we're not asking you to do this work, could you
Right.
give us a
yeah,
discount?
and it's a big amount of work.
Right.
Well,
It's a lot, I would imagine this is a good percentage of their
Yes.
work.
So I think they might, well, who knows, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
It's probably somewhere spelled out in that contract what their duties were, and if that item was farmed out somewhere else, then I think that probably could give us an out.
If that gives us an out, the other thing is, I think my argument would be, we had somebody come in and do an appraisal, which was far greater than what they were giving us, so their appraisals have been inaccurate. So we've kind of been paying for something
Yeah.
Right,
that's not been yielding what we wanted it to yield.
right.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page on that.
Okay.
Is that where you were going, Gabby?
Yes, absolutely. That's why I was going, because I think they have much less work, and the Butch is 100% right. I think we should talk to them, be honest about it, tell them, look, we are in a mess because of some past work, whatever the reasons were, but and try to work with them as much as we can.
No, we'll talk to them, Gabby, to see if we can do away with 50,000 and go
Elias.
from there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Elias.
All right, got it on the list. ARB services, the next line, that's increasing. We usually hold that budget pretty flat at the same amount, but next year we're going to make some structural changes. Introduce a fifth panel and change the auxiliary pay from the previous $135 up to the $170 per day, same as the first term ARB members, because they're doing basically the same work, and we're kind of having a hard time finding candidates for those positions, same as the labor for the appraisal district in general, trying to get applicants to apply and then weed through the ones that can't serve. So the ARB is proposing that increase, plus the fifth panel, and as you can see, it's needed. Doesn't look like protests are going to go down anytime soon. We tried to cut other ARB wherever we could. Those are the next three lines. Well, with more cases comes more legal, so we took our best shot at what that's going to be. So we increased from 9,000 to 13,000. Let's see, printing and forms, higher volume. County's growing. Legal notices, there's been trends. It's been going up in cost. Every time we do any of these legal notices, they keep raising the price by another $300, $400 each. So we're budgeting more for that. Books and subscription, new legal staff, new subscriptions. Let's see, now, big one is that last one. The litigation fund, as you can see, $500,000 every year, but next year we're proposing $1 million. Okay? And we'll talk about some options on that after I get done to the bottom. Let's see. The next section, capital outlay, we removed the cars, like Ronnie mentioned, the replacement vehicles, and put toward remodeling the third floor. And that's to create additional office space, because it's like 14 years ago up there. Create more office space and another ARB panel room. And that's our best guess at what the cost is, $586,000. And there is no more. But total budget, we're going from 9.6 for this year to 10.9 for next year, which is an increase of 1.3 million. As you can see at the bottom, percentage-wise, so that's 1.3 million, percentage-wise 13.51. And then we'll talk about funding options, but let's talk about how it's funded right now. Go to page 22, please. This is who's paying for 99% of it. Those are all of our funding entities. This methodology that we use by spreading it across the entities based on their levies, that's why the levies are so key to some of us here. We have to pay attention to them because that's how we get paid. And so it's spread using a methodology in the code. We could change it, but this is the methodology by default in the code, and the one we've always used, is we take the certified levy and we take a percentage by entity and then spread the portion of our budget that we need to collect from them across those entities. So we develop a percentage. The first column is the estimate. Well, we're using the actual last year's levy. We don't know what this year's levy is going to be. In October, this will be changed to reflect the actual levies and redistribute across the entities. But for now, here's our best guess. The third column over is the 2024 allocation for next year's budget. If this budget is approved, goes through everybody, we pass it, all of that, this is what each one will be paying for 2024. We receive it quarterly. Alongside that is the 2023 allocation, and the last column is the increase or decrease by entity. As you can see, just by scrolling, just let your eyes wander down that last column, you could see the increase to each entity. We'd be asking, for example, Nueces County for another $160,000, Farm to Market for another $2,000, Nueces County Hospital District $57,000, and so forth. The big ones, obviously, increase of budget this large is going to really hit some of these entities. Looking down, City of Corpus Christi sticks out, CCISD sticks out, and I think they just put an ad in the paper about a budget shortfall. And then I think Butch just alluded to it. Let's see, Del Mar College, another $128,000. So you can see the impact on the entities of this budget going through, and we know that. We're sensitive to that. But we also have the flip side, which is think that we need to be doing all of this. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put it in the budget. Now, there are options. We could send the budget out to the entities exactly as you see it here. Or, remember, I'm going to tie this in with something separate that we bring to you all twice a year, once with an estimate, once with a final, and that's to reserve our fund balance. You know how at the end of the year we have money and we drop it in the kitty, and then we designate pieces of it? You remember that? We call it GASB 54. Okay. So out of that, we have reserves, and we've been talking about those. We have a couple of them. The intent of the reserves was to actually build them, like fund balance, to build it to achieve certain objectives for that money. But we may have to use it to fund some of this budget. So I don't have anything to put in front of you on this, but I'm just going to give you some ideas.
It's a good idea.
Is that Gabby? What was it?
That was Gabby.
Yeah, I like thinking about options because I'm new, and I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I think we need to have some more of the numbers in order to make some decisions on the budgets, and the more options Elias can give us, the better it will be for us. Because if those shortfalls are higher, we can't do the increases if everyone else pulls back. especially not in the position that we are in right now as decision makers in some of that stuff. And we can talk about that in closed session. But I do think if you have the more options you have for us, Elias, the better it will be. So that's very commendable in terms of trying to find other solutions, because it will be hard for us to give increases if everyone else is reporting shortfalls.
Sure. Now, remember, I'm, where I come from, we had more options. Here,
Yeah.
okay, so,
When do we certify 2023?
August,
Okay.
So we have something.
yeah. Now,
No,
on-
no, what I'm saying is when the levy, the
Oh,
tax
you're talking
levy,
about certification,
Yeah.
July 25th,
July 25th.
yes.
So we'll know the difference between 2022 and 2023 in July.
Right.
well,
As an option, if we see some of the entities that are not affected by the litigation, that have a higher certified levy, is it possible that we raise the percentage on them? Because they're actually going to see a realization in their budget increase. They're going to have bigger budgets that will not be affected by
No,
them.
but their budget, well, their levy is basically how we arrive on their percent as to what they're supposed to pay.
But why wouldn't it be, whether you get $100 million in revenue or $1 million, why wouldn't it be the same? Why wouldn't you tax 10%? As just a round number, on 100 million, you know, everybody would say, pay this the same percentage. Why wouldn't we do it that way? Just curious.
I don't understand how you.
So
put
if
that.
CCISD gets 100 million and Agua Dulce gets $1 million,
Yeah,
why wouldn't we charge CCISD 10% and Agua Dulce 10%?
because the formula that we arrive on our budget is basically by state.
Okay, so that's a state.
Yes.
So I'm just curious why we would tax different, or,
That option that we have is basically guiding us.
okay,
by-
so whether
that's-
their budget goes up or not, we really can't
Right,
adjust our percentage.
right.
Okay.
well, kind of, what happens is the levies don't all grow at the same percentage. Like, what, Agua Dulce might be kind of flat, but Port A is way up
Right.
because their values jumped up more and maybe they changed their rates. There's different variables that go
But
into
our
the
hands
levy.
are tied on that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a state deal, is that you can only tax this entity, or you can, not tax them, but you can only
Percent,
request a percentage of
Yes.
their revenue this way. Okay.
right.
Kelly, you had a question?
No, well, I'm still kind of troubled with the fact that there'll be some entities, and Ronnie says it's been across the board for years, but I'm troubled that, like my entities, they don't, are not gonna reap any benefits from the refinery litigation, but they're gonna have to still incur their percentage share of the litigation costs. And I'm not too sure how you break that down, if you can. Ronnie?
Well, like I said, basically, we go by the guidelines that's set by the state on the formulas that we utilize to do our budget. And it's not just us. I mean, once we arrive at a budget number, then the levy is what dictates what they're going to pay for each of those entities, whether you're involved with the big lawsuits or not with the big lawsuits.
You can't hear me?
I can't either, so you need to speak
What's
into
that?
your mic.
No, well,
Please.
No, I was just talking about the equity, whether or not it was right for the, I guess, entities like mine that aren't gonna really reap any benefits from the refinery litigation, having to pay for litigation. You know, if our hands are tied, our hands are tied, so be it. Okay. I guess the next big issue is gonna be the cost of living expense, I guess.
They may be glad they're not in the refinery litigation right now, though.
Yeah, just because of the shortfall that they're
Yeah.
going to experience.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right,
so
continue.
funding options.
Yeah, let's go to the.
There are
options.
three big ones that we can think of. One, take things out of the budget, okay? But obviously, we wouldn't put them in there unless we felt like we needed them. Two, we've been putting money for years, we keep socking away whatever we have and putting it in the general fund, except for a couple of years where we dumped whatever was left into the litigation fund, and that now has been spent mostly. But we still have a couple of other places. We called it cash flow. The intent of that was to build up 3 months' worth of cash flow in case something happened economically and we needed to make payroll and bills and all that. That is still woefully inadequate, but it was at 1.1 million We're thinking about taking this year 500,000 out of that to help fund with our costs this year in the litigation budget without asking for a budget amendment.
We lost Gabby.
Oh, that's okay. No, I think she's got to initiate that on her end. Looks like something went wrong. We're trying to get back into the meeting. Okay. Should I wait for her?
Is she in Austria?
Is she abroad? Does anybody know, or is she local?
I don't know.
We'll give her just a few seconds.
There she, looks like she's in the background.
There's, no, that's not.
No, if I take it.
I'm okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, what boy?
What about?
Ronnie, while we're waiting for Gabby, so just out of curiosity.
Thank you, I'm back in.
Back.
Okay, so
Well, I would just, maybe we can talk about it later, but I'm just curious, you know, CCISD is at 27%, whereas Cal Island's at 3%. I'm
Right.
just, that's a state mandate that is done that way?
You want me to explain details of that?
Well,
Okay.
no, you don't have to, it's gonna take up a lot of time. You
No,
can,
no,
you
it's a
can call me
quickie.
later on and say, hey, this is how it works.
Okay, well, for everybody's knowledge, we get the levies. We're estimating them now. When we get them, it's usually October, and our budget has to be passed by September 15th. So we don't know these levies until then, at the earliest. So, but once we drop the levies in, it prorates. The percentages update. So generally, CCISD is around anywhere between 26 and 29%, depending on how their levy grew compared to everybody else's. But right now, these are just last year's levies. The formula is drop everybody's levy in, the percentages update, and then it distributes what we need in the way of budget from each of them.
So it's not actually a percentage. We're not saying that we're going to hit them with 27%. It's basically that
On the
their
left.
percentage of the collections is, okay, I'm looking at it the wrong way then, is what I'm doing. Okay. Makes sense now.
What we need to remember is we're not passing this budget today. We're formulating the numbers, and we're going to submit this budget to the taxing entities for approval. And then, after we submit that, then we will get back, they'll get back to us, and then we will pass the budget. Am I
That's right.
correct there, Elias?
You're correct, yeah.
So, it's good to have these questions, but please understand that we don't have, this is not the final decision incumbent upon us. We're gonna disseminate this information to the different entities, and then they'll have time to taste it and swallow it, and then come back and have any questions.
So Elias, you're talking about reserves. You said you had $1 million in what?
Yeah, I was going to go into that in just a second. Okay, here we
So
go.
we can change it.
So
We get,
we call them reserves, but really it's fund balance, but
Yes.
same thing. We've been socking away money. So out of the reserves, we have, for the cash flow that we set aside, last time, after the audited numbers for 2022, we came into the year with 1,167,370 for that component of the reserves. We're already, 500,000 of that is planned to be spoken for during this year, so that leaves another 667,000. One of the funding options could be to decrease the budget for the litigation fund line item from 1 million down to 500,000 and get that other 500,000 from here. That's one option for the litigation fund. For the third floor,
Would that deplete the reserve in that area?
Yes.
yes, it'll leave me with like 167,000. The original intent was to build 3 months' worth of cash flow, but it'll take it back down to basically.
So what's the other 500,000 you said it's already committed?
Well, the litigation fund is running low right now, like
No.
this year before 2024.
But you said out of the fund balance, 1.1, so you're saying that we've already allocated 500,000 of the 1.1 towards litigation already?
We're thinking about doing that and proposing it at the next board meeting, because the fund has gotten down to below 300,000 now.
Okay.
We may need it, so
Which would leave 700,000.
leave 667,700, yeah. So, and then we're thinking if we take the other 500 out of there, this will decrease by 500,000 and put it back to the 500,000 that they're used to seeing. Okay.
So basically, we're just submitting this proposal, and if our entities say you're crazy or whatever, they come back with some suggestions, then we have to get back to, I guess, to the table and come up with some numbers. Is that correct, for the most part?
If I hear you.
For the most part, I'll answer.
No, so what I'm saying is, this is just a proposal that we're submitting to our entities, and then we're gonna wait for their feedback, and if they all say yes, then great, we did a great job, it passes, but if they give us some negative feedback, we have to go back to the drawing board and come up with some new numbers, is that right?
That's exactly what we're thinking, yeah.
Right.
Throw it out there, see what they say, and then we have backup plan in case we
It's
need to
like
pull it.
spaghetti you throw in the refrigerator with sticks.
Yeah, either we do that, or we make the changes today,
Yeah.
according to what we're talking about, and then submit a budget that's gonna be less than what?
Well,
Three-
let me talk
Go
about the
ahead.
other funding source, and then we can talk about the impact on the percentage.
Right.
Okay. Now, separate from that, we have another, for the capital acquisitions, we have been setting aside, I think that's me that's.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Not used to working with these things. Separately from that, we have $630,000 of capital acquisitions that we have been building money for in case we need something big. Well, third floor is something big, and it would fit within that. So right now, we have that 630,000. We could take the 589,000 out of this budget and pull it out of our own money. Okay.
What, out of curiosity, what is 3 months' salary?
2.5, I think it's 2.5 million. Hold on. I've
No,
got-
that's 3 months of salaries?
Hold on, because Ronnie asked me that same question. I had to sit and compute it because with the, what was it, like 3.1 because of all the benefits and everything else? You know, because whenever you make a payroll, you also have the FICA and all of that.
What was the question?
How much is 3 months of
We're
salaries?
using this
It's
as
about 3
reserve,
million,
about 3 million.
Mhm.
So,
more or less.
so our fund is 2 million short
Oh, yeah.
already.
Yeah.
It's already short, yeah. Okay. Hold on, because Ronnie had asked me that
Can I-
question already. Okay, so 3.65
Can I just
million.
Hold on,
ask
hold on,
something?
Gabby.
Sorry.
Hold on, go ahead, Gabby.
So I'm just, and I know we have talked about the third floor and we all have looked at it and everything. But if we are really short and we need the money for something else, let me put it this way. The litigation part is going to be a 1 or 2 year deal, very probably not more than that, right? I mean, we are not, no judge will make the appraisal district go into another 3 or 4 year ordeal, I would assume. And the attorneys can, please guys, if you know better, let me know if I'm wrong. I'm just thinking loud here, do we really need to do the third floor right now? And I'm just throwing this out, you know?
The
I
third
know we
floor-
have been working on it, and Ronnie, you have been very diligent about getting bids, and I know it's a necessity on the long run, but if we are short in a budget and we need it for, I call it a big fight, you know, do we have any options to shift money?
That's what we're
Well,
doing.
that's what we're doing right now. We're letting you know.
No, but I mean,
what-
I'm talking about the third floor.
Yes, and so am I.
Okay,
What we're trying to do is to give you an option. We already know what the numbers are. We're just going to explain to you where we're going to get those numbers from. That way, when you look at the 13.5 budget, the way it's written, once we go to the other option that we're looking at to do what we need to do, I think you're going to be looking at a budget between 8 and maybe 3% at most. It's going to be 8. The least will be about 3%. And that's moving monies from those other funds that we're looking at right now. Okay?
okay.
So it would be,
Okay.
What we wanted to do first is to run this budget by you all, the 13.5, the current one we're looking at, without having to look to the other options that we have there. Only because we also, you never know what could happen next year, hurricane season, et cetera. But, you know, when we look at the fact that these are things that we do need, and we've been trying to get this done for several years now, and now because of the refineries, That's creating a problem for a lot of the districts, some of the districts, not a lot. City is not going to be really affected since they've got the industrial district at all. They really don't concern themselves with it. CCISD does, Tolosa Midway does too. That's because of Flint Hills. But on the other end, the county is looking at the whole deal as a big deficit coming for them. Okay? And that's because the refineries are not going to be paying their fair share. We know that. We've known that for the last 5 years. So Elias will explain to you, he'll finish explaining where those numbers are going to come from. And that budget can come down to, what is going to be the final number?
Okay, if y'all take both of the options, the budget growth would be a dollar amount of about $217,000 growth instead of 1 million, and the percent would be 2.25.
Percentage would be what, Elias?
2.25.
2.25.
It'd be a growth in the budget of only 2.25.
And that would include us, at this point, that would include juggling and keeping our eye focused. One of my main concerns with discussions that Ronnie and I've had, and you've added to on phone calls, is the dire need we have for the third floor. That really is an issue, because when we were up there looking at it, the space, Terry has alluded to the space that we need, and every day, as you all know, every day that we delay on this renovations and improvement on this third floor, it's not going to get less expensive. So we need to keep our eye on that issue as well. And we need to keep trying to make sense, economic sense, to the taxing entities, but they've also got to be able to empathize with us and understand that we do need more space, and we have no funds. There's no way for us to generate funds. So we're relying on them, and they need to understand, well, I hope that they would understand that the dire need for space here.
Well, the only problem is, I don't
Refresh my
think,
memory, what is the dire need, again?
The dire need is office space
What? Why? I mean,
for additional staff to do what we need to
you're
do.
going to hire more staff?
Once we open up the third floor, yes.
You need to hire more staff.
Yes, sir. Because right now, we don't have space for additional appraisers or clerks in the office. Okay? We don't.
I don't think anybody's really comprehending the brevity, though, of this budget shortfall that we're talking about here.
Wouldn't that, Kevin?
I don't think anybody's really fully grasping the
I got
enormity,
it.
Well,
the enormity of this budget shortfall. There's not going to be any discussion as far as them being able to empathize with us on needing something here. They're not going to have the money.
so
I mean, if this goes through like it possibly could outside of any legislative action, you tell me how CCISD cuts $70 million out of their budget. They don't have the money. Or the county with $30 million, or Del Mar with $25 million, and I mean, we're talking all your big funding. And this appraisal, I would highly recommend against pulling any fund balances down, because they may not be able to pay the appraisal district. It's that bad. And I would not submit a budget with any increases whatsoever, facing what we are facing right now.
you're going to get an increased budget from the city. You're probably going to get another one from Del Mar.
Del Mar's going to be losing $25 million also.
Well, according to what they said yesterday,
Yeah.
they're going to be doing what they need to do to make sure they exist.
Yeah, and that means,
They're going to be giving people raises as well.
I don't know that they,
See, no.
well, I don't,
I'm
I'm just looking at the numbers and I'm seeing them for what they are. And maybe they've got reserves to be able to tackle $25 million.
according to what CCISD said, they still have reserves.
Yes,
At
they've
least
got
for another
reserves, but
year.
it's going to pull them down to zero.
At least for another year, and they're waiting for legislation to see what they're going to
Yeah.
do. Once they get that done, then of course they'll get extra funding. from the state.
Well, they won't get that extra funding until the lawsuit's settled, and that could be years.
Yeah, but we cannot,
Well, if they don't have the money to pay us, they don't have the money to pay us.
well, the thing is that we cannot hold back on what we need to do here to continue to exist to do what we do.
Well, the money's not there. and
As it is, you're looking at twice as many people coming through the office. We're at 32,000 versus a total
Yeah.
of 28,000.
And we're increasing,
And
I'm
we're
cutting
only
staff
in mid,
because it's not going to
in
be there.
mid-June. Okay?
Well, we're cutting staff because we don't have the money to pay for them. And our volume's not decreasing either.
You know,
So, I mean, I'm just telling you guys, if this thing unravels in the potential it could, I would not be touching fund balances right now.
So has this information been made aware, I mean, has the county been made aware that they're gonna be looking at a $30 million?
Yeah.
Del Mar been made aware that
Yes.
they're looking at a 25 million?
See, CCISD had already said, when they were last year, they were 25 million in deficit. That was about, last time they met was when, about 2 or 3 months ago.
Is that because since 18, 5 million a year,
Yes.
and then,
And,
but an additional 60 million? now?
yes, and if y'all remember, back in October, I warned that this may happen.
that's partially, we won't like it.
So, I mean, it's just, I think we're going to have to feel some of the pain too right now, short term, until this thing unravels and gets fixed.
You know, being in the middle of this discussion, LA just brought up a very interesting point, or it might have been Leo, that what you're saying, Kevin and Butch, and what Ronnie's saying, we may have to reach a conclusion of cutting back as far as our expenses.
Some of our increases.
Some of our increases. Cutting back some of those increases and giving a more balanced presentation.
Yeah.
And that way, what we cut out is the perception that we've got unlimited funds, because we don't. But the issue is that the real folks that are going to come to the table with these monies are going to be the taxing entities, and they need to see, I would hope they would see, that we are also cutting back, that we're not just going out. And so my initial reaction would be, where can we cut? And then this is what we need to increase. But this is because this money that you're talking about, Kevin, Del Mar, the city, the county, the school districts, they didn't just arbitrarily cut across the board. They cut some that they needed to get cut. I'm sure, I don't know this.
Yeah.
But they kept or increased what they needed to keep or increase.
So we won't really know how bad this is until
Right.
January when
Right.
when it's too late.
Right.
And you've already set your budget, you've already been spending
But you
it.
see what I'm
So-
saying? The picture I'm painting
Yeah.
to you is
Yeah.
that they don't just capriciously cut everything, they sort of weigh and balance.
Right.
And that's probably where we need to be at this point. What do you think, Caitlin?
I hear what Kevin's saying as far as being sensitive to the other entities and their budget shortfalls. So I do think we need to look into the individual line items.
Okay.
On the other hand, we have to be careful because our success will be their success.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we're working with a limited staff, someone asked a question earlier about the third floor. And if our staff is working right next to each other, and there could be a third person added and have more room to disseminate the information that they need to look at, how are we shortchanging the taxing entities but not doing a more thorough job, that we don't get overwhelmed? And so that would be the issue, I think, that we would need to be doing. We probably, in all likelihood, would be doing a much better job as far as getting more bang for the buck, as far as bringing in monies to these taxing entities. But until then, if you can't, as my dad used to tell me, you can only get so many melons out of an acre. But if you have 2 acres, you'll get more melons. And so I know that's really simplistic, but, you know, that's farmers thinking. And it's, if we have a little bit more room, maybe we might be able to do a little bit more for these taxing entities. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I just think in this environment right now, we need to just hold off on that until this unwinds.
Well, the thing is that if you were to do that, then we can't wait till January to adopt a budget.
Well, I know we can't, so we have to,
But you
we
see,
really
what
need to make our.
we're trying to do is
based on-
give you an option to where the needs of the office are pretty much serious.
Well,
And it's been, we held back last year and the year before that. We can't hire additional staff. Staff is working pretty hard to do what needs to get done. The ARB is even working harder to do what they need to get done. And now we're expanding to 5 panels instead of 4.
No, I get it, but I'm gonna be
And in
closing,
order-
I'm gonna be closing Bishop, Robstown, and Port
Well,
Aransas.
yes, I understand what
And
you're going
so-
to have to do, but that's going to be your duty, not mine.
Right, well, guess who
My
pays,
job
and
is
who
to make
pays for
sure-
this?
My job is to make sure that we do what we have to do to make sure that we have a good working environment here.
And these,
And I understand too about the entities
Yeah.
wanting to make their cuts and things like that, but that's not our responsibility. It's not. Our
But-
job is to make sure we have proper values to do what needs to get done.
but they
and we
fund
go
you,
from there.
but they do fund you, and if the money's not there to fund you, then I'm just warning you
Well,
that
I think,
this is a
if I
very
may,
critical situation that we're not, I don't think is really sunk into everybody yet.
Go ahead, Gabby.
I think if I may, I think Caitlin said it right. It's more about the sensitivity about it, because once all of this is going to get more into the open as we go with all of the stuff, you know, about the refineries, about the money coming in or not coming in. If we are the entity that basically is changing the landscape, I call it the landscape of all of it, of tax collection in the county, and we are the ones going ahead and not looking at the repercussions, all when we already have been made aware of them by Kevin right now, even before that. I think it might reflect really poorly on us. I do get what Ronnie is saying. From your perspective, Ronnie, I would be 100% with you, because you look at your staff, you look at what you need to do, and you have to ask for more. I'm 100% there. But if we look at it as a board, we also have the responsibility to anticipate some of the shortfalls or ask for more numbers, which we're doing right now. And if the shortfalls are too big and everyone else has to cut and we increase, then we, all of us, it doesn't matter whether you're the chief or a board member, then we are really on the wrong side of this. Because we have been driving the boat, and we need to, you know, we need to also feel the repercussions if they hit everyone else. And that's, I think, a very hard question right now. And it's very hard because I know your staff is doing a great job, and I wish we could just renovate it and give everyone increases, but we need to look at the timeframes, look at how long this thing can last, ask maybe the lawyers too about their opinions on all of it, and then go from there.
What if we were to, Elias, looking at this, at the budget, preliminary budget that we have, what if we were to eliminate the capital improvements
Okay.
and
I have-
eliminate the cash flow operating reserve? That would bring us to $1.7 million approximately. Am I correct?
You mean what's left over in the reserves?
Yes, sir.
Let me get it. That would leave us with, 1.7, but then minus another 500,000 we're planning on putting in, so about 1.2.
Okay.
We would actually have other components there, but they're already spoken for, the health plan, the HVAC.
Right.
So taking those out, it would take it down to 1.2 of, let me see, if we take the million out, if we take the, it would leave us 800.
Well, is, Jerry, is it possible that, since we're kind of all confused at this point, and, you know, everyone has some good opinions or good thoughts, is it possible that maybe Elias can come up with some different numbers, different options, and we can have like a special meeting in a couple of weeks or a week or so?
Actually, I was going to suggest something, other than the budget versus fund balance part. After we get that resolved today, let's send this thing out. We have already scheduled for July a workshop with all of you at that board meeting, and we can come back with some more options. I think what I'm hearing here is come back with options in case we get pushback from the entities. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what you're hearing.
Because I
Okay.
think we're gonna get pushback.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. But at least let's send it out there and let them
But
see
let's,
this.
if we send it out, folks, if we send it out and let them look at it, and like Kevin is convinced that we're gonna get feedback, and I agree with him.
Sure.
And if we do, we need to be ready with other numbers to be able to put our position out there as far as the appraisal district. Is that what you're saying, Elias?
I'm saying at least let them see what we're asking for, okay? In the meantime, we ourselves can discuss where to get the money or where to cut.
So how do y'all feel about that?
Quick question, so the entities have to approve the funding?
No, I don't think they have to act on our budget or anything like that. They just see it and then they give feedback.
Okay,
They
so,
usually do it through board members because everybody represents different entities.
right, so who approves the budget? So if we approve the budget as is, they have to pay it?
Mhm.
Okay.
And you'll approve it, well,
they can afford it.
August, but this might be a weird year where we actually end up doing it in September. Because they have to have it by
That's why we're
September
giving-
15th.
Pardon me, Elias.
Uh-huh.
That's why we're giving them the preliminary numbers, Butch, and let them give us their feedback. Because we're at their service. And,
Well,
go ahead.
Excuse me, so legal, I have a quick question. So assume with me that we send the budget out, they grumble about it, but we still pass it, and then they do what Kevin says, and that is they can't pay. What do we do then?
I don't
They-
know that we have an answer for that right now, but we will look into it and
I guess
see
it's never
what the
happened.
options are.
It's never
Another
happened before.
lawsuit.
Right, so.
Well, I can tell you, if we ain't getting any money, we ain't getting any money.
Well,
That's the bottom line.
The short answer, I'm sure they would want to look at a more thorough one, but they can veto our budget, and then we've got like 30 days to adopt a new one. So you all approve it, and they veto it, then, because there's a process for that, and then we'd have to adopt a new one.
And Elias, and I hear what you're saying about just submit it, see what they say, but maybe we should submit it with lower numbers and maybe
Well,
easier for them to chew on.
I think that's the sensitivity that we're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's why we're talking about what can we pull from the reserves and then send them the budget for the difference. So for example, if we lower this by the litigation fund line item in here from 1 million down to 500,000 and pull the 500,000 from our reserves, and if we take that third floor renovation out of this budget and take it out of the reserves, the budget percentage that we send them tomorrow.
Who has your money?
I don't know.
Sound like an airplane. Gabby, was that you?
Hello? No, no.
So if we take those two things out of here and take them from reserves, they won't even be in here, then they will get a budget with a growth of 2.25 tomorrow, because I'll email it to them tomorrow, and they'll just get a budget with 2.25% growth in it.
Correct.
And our fund balance would be at 1.2, is that what you said?
No, our fund
No.
balance, though, will go down by like $1 million.
Yeah, so we'll be at 100,000,
132.
132.
Yeah,
When you're
I mean,
saying-
there's other stuff in the fund balance, but with
Right.
regard to this, it would leave us on the cash flow and the capital acquisitions, we'd be down to 200,000.
So if we say that we're taking them from the fund balance, it doesn't necessarily mean that we've committed the funds. It's just saying that we're going to find them from somewhere else.
Yeah, we're funding them internally.
All right, but I guess my question is, have we committed to the 500,000 for the third floor to be renovated?
No.
Is that a done
No,
deal yet?
no,
Mm.
no.
So we're not actually committing, I mean, we're not forming a budget saying that that's in there, that we're just pulling it from somewhere else.
Mhm.
We're just, you know.
We're
we may-
funding it
we-
ourselves.
We may decide that we can't do it,
Mhm.
and the 500,000 will stay in
Yeah,
the
and
fund.
if we can't do it, we can't do
We
it.
can't do it,
Right.
okay. I think that that's the, I
And
think
it
the
would drop
sensitivity
the-
thing is, I think, I feel
Yeah.
much more comfortable proposing
It
a
would drop it to
2.25.
2.2?
2.25.
Right.
I'd feel
So-
much
Yeah,
more
and-
comfortable
Yeah.
going with
Go
that.
ahead, Gabby.
Sorry, yes, I think what it is it doesn't really matter whether the entities veto it or not right now, because some of them might not be seeing, as Kevin said, this is a pretty big train coming down the road. So it might not catch everyone at the same time, and we might only know in January what's going on. So if that's the case, we need to be prudent on our end, because we know more than most of them. And if we are the ones having the biggest increase and the others are already trying to do better, then I don't think that would be prudent on our part. So I feel more comfortable with a lesser increase request, because it's really our duty at this point of time.
And that's what we're proposing now. And,
Yeah.
and so if the board is generally satisfied with that budget presentation that we're going to do to all the entities, then do we have the go-ahead to go ahead and do that?
So you're looking for a motion, then that would be I move that we.
Well, there's no action needed.
Okay,
It's
so-
just feedback, and then we send
Okay,
it.
so, well, we don't have to say then that our
No.
budget is
Yeah.
going to be, I'd like to go with the 2.25%.
And so
version.
and that's the feedback that we want, Butch.
Right.
So if that's what we want to do, then we
So
just
that's-
go with that, and it does touch every button as far as
Seems like that'd be an
sensitivity.
actionable item. It seems like we'd have to be, as a board.
No, because
say-
y'all don't act on this budget until adoption time, which could
Until
be
we
August or
approve it.
September. In the meantime, it's a moving document.
And something good or bad could happen in that time.
Right.
We could always modify.
Right,
Sure.
right.
Okay.
So, go ahead and go with this, Elias,
Okay.
on that 2.2, and let's just see what happens.
Okay, in the meantime, then, just side note, when we come back in July, what I'm hearing here is that probably in the next 30 days, we're going to get some sort of feedback. We already have this feedback, and we know that there's probably going to be more of that. We are sensitive to that. It's just got to do what we got to do, too. So what we'll do is we'll send this out, and then we'll come in July, and if y'all want us to, we can talk about, I mean, I have nowhere else to pull it. It would have to be actual cuts. Maybe we can go deeper into some of these new things or some of the existing things. We can do the legwork in-house and then talk to you about that. Let me just ask you one question. As a board, what do you think would be ideal? I guess I'll start with Kevin on that one. What do you think would be the ideal situation with our budget? Factoring in
Well,
entities.
Here's what I'm thinking, is the last thing you want to do is come in January and make emergency cuts in the middle of appraisal. That's where a big, if you got to cut staff in the middle of appraisal because you're not getting the money, that's a real possibility.
Okay.
And I'm telling y'all, these numbers are huge. This isn't like a $4 or $5 million shortfall here that we can just adjust our budget and do these things. We're talking 20-30% of some of these taxing or more of these jurisdictions' budgets that they may not be receiving. And so, I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to be a heavy hit. Now, we are also working on legislation to try to fix some of this as an emergency option. So I've got some rabbits up the sleeve, but anything legislative is a long shot. So, but we're not going to go down. We're not going to go down without a fight and try to figure out ways to fix this problem.
Kevin, when you say legislative fix, what is it you're talking about?
I'm talking about adjustments to the TNT calculation so we can take these potential losses into accountability.
Will that be included in the special session
Well,
or
but
not?
that's what we're trying to do, and it would be an emergency option. I've got our local delegation. I'm meeting with them very, very quickly in person to try to work that out and try to get something out there and done on this, because I do have some solutions for it, but it's just I know the four will be on board, but can we convince the rest of them? And it's going to require action, by the governor at this point. I mean, it's that bad.
And they're not talking to each other anyway.
Exactly.
And Kevin, also one thing that's missing you're working on the scenario that they're not going to look for voter-approved higher rates.
Well, that won't even make any difference at this point on these kind of dollars. Voter approval rate. I mean, it would be an insane amount in order to cover that sort of loss. It'd be absolutely insane. There's no way voters are going to approve that.
And what I'm hearing is that I think what's causing this is the restriction on the effective rate?
Well, it's
Because of the no new revenue rate?
The cause of the problem is the
Compression.
restriction on the amount of money that they're not gonna pay because they have a history of paying on a 770 million, or one of them 700 and something million, and the other was 680 something million. And there's track history. Now we're going to a very, very large $4.06 billion amount. I don't think they're gonna budge off of that number, and if they don't budge off of that number, you're gonna have about 3 or 4 billion per plant that's not gonna get paid on.
Okay, so the difference
Or the
between
valuation. And
tax
so-
revenue on paper based on the methodology versus
on
cash
what
flow?
actual is gonna happen.
Okay.
And that's where your issue is. And that's what's causing these massive shortfalls that we're anticipating.
Good news, Kevin, thank you.
I'm just a barrel of fun today, aren't I?
Does the
It's a
term
really
Debbie
good name.
Downer mean anything to you?
Do what?
Debbie Downer?
I am just the equal opportunity antagonist, and I get to do that every tax season. And this year, I just get quadruple.
Kevin, LA wants to go home. Does he-
I think we all do.
All right, so it's a general consensus then that we submit this, and in the meantime, as if you don't have enough to do, Elias, then we need to work on variable numbers.
Okay. Like
And-
where we can shape?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Well, so real quick, you said that 3 months' salary was 3 point what million?
Well, it's right around 3 million.
Yeah.
Well, so times 4, that's 12 million.
Yeah, but think about benefits and stuff here.
Well, I
There's-
know, but I'm saying but our total budget is 10 million? So how do we,
Nine point something.
so how do we have 12 million in salary with a $9 million
Well, here,
budget?
let me just do a quick computation. There you are. Because keep in mind that whenever I look at it a little bit differently than you're just looking at payroll. I also look at fixed contracts. We have an ARB that still has to be paid. Things like that that
Well,
are ongoing.
I'm guessing, if our total budget is 10 million, divide that by 4, and that would give us a 3-month cost.
Yeah, that's true. If we just, because there's a lot of stuff in this,
And
like
that's all
TY Pickett, we
operations.
still have to make, the computer contracts, we still have to make those payments.
Right.
So, but if you're asking just about the payroll piece, let me give
Well,
you.
I think the easy way to do is what does it cost to keep the place open for 3 months? That's our total budget divided by 3.
Yeah,
By
okay, so
4.
11 million
So,
divided by 3. So, yeah, like 3.6 million if you just take the total budget divided by. But if we take some of this stuff out, like obviously the building renovation, here, let me give you a more refined number. 946, building renovation out. Almost 3.3.
that's total. Total.
Everything.
Yeah, okay.
Still need office supplies. If we have people here, we still need the lights, that kind of thing.
Okay, so we submit this tomorrow.
With the lower percentage.
Right.
Right.
Okay, and then just know, no reserves.
Right.
Okay.
Okay?
'Cause they were already woefully inadequate.
Now, just so you all know, we were running to 13.5 so that you have and are aware of what the actual needs are of the office. We also shared with you the other options that we were referring to. I don't necessarily want to go into that other option, but if worse comes to worse, that was going to be it because of the deficits that other entities might be looking at. A 2.1 or 1.1 budget based on the fact that we're not going to do anything to the third floor, that's 600,000 right there that we can do, and I think we already had figured that out. But we wanted to be inclusive, we didn't want to hide nothing as far as where we have numbers that we can work with, and we shared that with Jerry prior to this meeting to let him know we're going to do it this way, see what happens, to see what the actual feedback is, and we were expecting what we were hearing today. So, just so you all know, at the end of the day, we were figuring on option number, plan B, which is what we're going to do now. Your 2.5% increase, overall increase, it'll be it. And that should be suffice. I don't think we'll get any negative feedback from the other entities because they also need to realize that we need to make sure that we do the work that needs to get done. Otherwise, their benefits and their Their value's not gonna be what they need to be at this point.
And that's what we discussed at length, Ronnie and I and Elias, and see what we could do. And we had reconciled ourselves to the fact that it's gonna have to be about 2 and change. But we wanted to give a different presentation to you all, so that way you all could come to that conclusion and see what you all thought.
And we did.
And obviously, if we get a taxpayer that pays their tax
Yeah.
bill, then,
Right.
you know, I think it would be one of those things that,
See, and that was one of the things that surprised me about CCISD in their article this morning. They didn't mention nothing about the refinery at all, at all. And that would have been the most appropriate time for them to have done it. And we're having to cut back, we're having to do this and do that because these people are not paying their fair share. And leave it at there. But then again,
Okay.
that's different. Anyway, go ahead, Chair.
Anything else on this initial budget? Okay, so now we've got the direction, Elias. We'll move forward. And at this point, we're going to go into executive session.
Take a break.
And, hold on just a second. Executive session, public notice is given that the Board of Directors may elect to go into executive session anytime during the meeting to discuss matters listed anywhere on the agenda when authorized by the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Should the Board of Directors elect to go into executive session, the section or sections of the Open Meetings Act authorizing the executive session will be publicly announced by the presiding officer. Upon completion of executive session, the Board of Directors may take such action as appropriate in open session. Item A, consult with legal counsel regarding Flint Hills/Valero litigation and related matters. 551.071. Item B, consult with legal counsel on legal matters regarding a contingency agreement for refinery litigation with Brenna Bell and Walker Law Firm, PC, and related matters. 551.071. Consult with legal counsel on legal matters relating to the property valuation certification process and related matters. 551.071. As of now, we'll go into a closed session, and we'll have a 5-minute break.
notices are pretty much out on the way. And then update on protest, I think this morning you got an earlier count as to where we're at today with the number of protests. We're actually at a little over 32,000 protests that we've already gotten compared to last year of a total of 28,000. Then we're also looking to see what the ARB for certification, we need to be at that 5% number. Right now, we're sitting at 35.8%, and we still got this month and most of next month, the 24th of July, to certify. That number has to come down to 5%, but that's inclusive, that number that's inclusive of TY Pickett numbers, meaning the refiners, et cetera. If we were to take that out, instead of the 35%, 36%, we'd be sitting today at 25%. So hopefully we can get it down to 5% so that ARB can certify their tax rolls to give to us, so that we can in turn give to the entities so they can start working on their tax rates and their budgets as well. Other than that, I can tell you that staff has been very, very good about working with a lot of different people here. We've had a lot of concerns, a lot of transparency. A lot of people have come in with a lot of good information. A lot of people have been helped on the lower side, meaning that numbers have changed for their benefit as well, but that's because they've also provided good information for us to do that. Other than that, I appreciate the work that the staff is doing and continues to work. This is the busiest time of the year for us, and it'll continue probably till mid-July. Probably by the 14th or 15th, by that time we begin to cut off, and hopefully the ARB can certify the rolls by the 24th, 25th of July. And then in turn, we can give that over to the entities, like I said, and at that point, they can start adopting their tax rates to start looking at their budgets. And I'll probably be talking to media again in reference numbers that we have, and especially, with our refinery friends, to make sure that they pay their fair share, because it is creating a lot of problems for the entities as far as we're concerned because of what the numbers are today. Anyway, other than that, if you all have any questions, please let me know. If not, forever hold your peace.
Okay, everybody hold your peace. So how about item 12? It's any items that y'all want to separate and bring to for our meeting next month?
We'll think of something. We'll think of something. If not, give me a call. I'll give Elias a call. So we can put that on the budget, on the agenda.
On the agenda. So that being said, it's 11:25. Meeting is adjourned. Oh, no. I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. I'm sorry.
So moved.
Butch,
Second.
quickly makes that motion.
Second.
And Kevin Kevin seconds it. Gabby seconds it. Everyone seconds it. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it passes unanimously. Thank you for your patience and for attending today. The meeting closes at 11:25.
Kevin, what's the best thing about that, Cheryl?